Welcome to the channel, Victoria.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Victoria Burns is the author of many books, including today's topic of discussion, Family Game Plans, Strategies of Life. Victoria, you actually describe it as a life experience manual to guide the mind, heart, and spirit to personal growth. So what's that personal growth you believe we should attain?
That personal growth is that I believe that we should all, seek out to obtain a personal relationship with God. Because when we do things and be in alignment with what God has for us, then that way, you know which way to go. And I consider that to be divinely guided.
I agree. I agree. Working hand in hand with God is the best way to move in life because He's the writer of our lives, the author of our lives. And it's best to consult Him and know what His plans are for
Yes.
each one of us. So I agree. Okay.
Yes.
So I want us to get into financial literacy, which you also write about. So tell us about that.
With financial literacy, we as people of color, we are not usually taught financial literacy. So seeing that we are not taught financial literacy, I believe that, that's something that we need to seek out for ourselves, seek out how to learn how to do invest our money into stocks and bonds, um, real estate, whatever the investment may be. But we as people of color, I believe that because that's not something that we are usually taught, is something that's very critical for us as a people to learn so that we can create generational wealth.
Wow, you are so right because people of color really aren't taught about this. And I feel like you're the perfect person to have this conversation with. So I'm going to get into more questions about financial literacy so that we can all have like a well versed understanding of it. Okay. So, what piqued my interest is that you actually have a chapter called Before You Think About Having Kids. Okay. So, what are we supposed to consider before we start having a family?
Well, my purpose in writing that chapter is because we, as humans, we are not given a guide to know what we should do as far as raising kids. And my purpose in writing that chapter is because I literally wrote this book because I wanted my grandchildren to grow up and know that they should do everything that they want to do in this life, whether it be, whatever it be, travel, educating themselves, going abroad to educate themselves, to travel, do those kinds of things before they have kids. At some point in that time period of educating yourself, still find things that you want to do and incorporate for yourself. Whatever trade you want to do, whatever career life path you want to do those things before you have kids so that you can be prepared for learning how to take care of yourself first to be able to take care of somebody else. Being a single mother myself at one time, it made it hard and difficult for me to be able to move about and do things that I wanted to do because I had kids. And then also, one of the things that I would suggest to young people or people in general before having kids and before you get into a relationship, to take time to vet people, meaning take time to really get to know them, before you get into a relationship, and pay attention to the context clues or those warning signs and your intuition about people so that you will know how to move about people.
That right there, learn to take care of yourself before you learn to take care of somebody else. That's why you should learn how to hone in on your skills and your abilities. And I love that you
Yes.
pointed out that we should be carefully vetting out people that we date because in like society, there are a lot of people who do marry young and they do find later on that maybe they rushed into that decision a little too quickly. So I agree, it's completely important to take time. So, like, how long would you advise that they stay in that dating spot?
I believe that anybody should, to be able to get to really know somebody, a 1 to 2 year time span, and before you call yourself moving in with them. And you know what I'm saying, just to really get to know somebody, a 1 to 2 years time period, maybe three. It all depends because, like I said, if you listening to your intuition, and if your intuition is telling you, "Hey, caution," or "Hey, slow down," or you get this sense of something saying "warning," that means to pump your brakes and take a seat back, a step back, and look at the situation, and then don't be afraid to ask the Most High God for clarity about the relationship.
Yes. And I feel like we're often told that it's during that time when we're getting to know someone else that we should be asking the financial literacy questions like, do you know how to budget? Do
Absolutely.
you know how to save? Talk about what we should be looking for in that discussion time with potential spouses.
Well, the as far as a potential spouse, I believe, as they say, the Bible says that we should not be unequally yoked. I believe that. If I, first of all, if I have a job and I'm working and doing things to put money aside, and then I meet somebody, and if he does not have a job, he's not working, he don't have some hustle going on, he don't have some save, that's not somebody that I would want to, incorporate into my life, immediately. Not saying that he could not get those things, but to, have that opportunity for him to do those things. But 9 times out of 10, if you ain't already established, like I'm already established, and I would suggest that for anybody, that wouldn't be the person that I would suggest that you would get into an immediate relationship. But follow your intuition, and if you feel, and if your everything in you saying, okay, let me give this person a chance, then allow that to happen if necessary. But listen to your intuition, because it never leads you wrong. I believe that that is God's way of speaking to us with those silent voices. And it seems like it's a silent voice, but it's a real soft voice that you just feel it in you and you hear it, and only you can hear it. So pay attention to those things, and that way you can have those conversations about literacy, financial literacy, and whether they know how to save money, and whether they know how to make money, and be able to budget their money to take care of themselves, and then to be able to include somebody else to help take care of them.
I agree because it's so important because once you two get together and you want to start having that family, you got to make sure that you both know
Yeah.
how to budget. And I love that phrase that you said,
Yeah.
do not be unequally yoked. So that is a good takeaway from this section. All right. So in your book, you also talk about generational prosperity. And I'm sure people with families just want to hear more about that. So tell us.
Well, for me, generational prosperity, it starts with being healthy in your mind and in your body. That's where generational wealth starts. Because if mostly a lot of us people of color, we tend to have mental health issues or things of that nature, family curse things that, people don't usually want to talk about, sexual abuse, depression, all of those types of things. And it's okay to speak to somebody about those things. And once you work on those things and be honest with yourself and deal with those things within yourself, then it should make it easier for you to be able to have those hard conversations with anybody else. And don't be afraid to seek out professional help so that you can continue to create this generational wealth. Generational wealth would, like I said, it starts in the mind and in the body, because if your mind is healthy, your body will be healthy, and you can create and think and make new opportunities for yourself to either create your own job or be able to work somebody else's job, or however you see fit.
Yes, I agree because mental health does affect how we deal with money. So you want to make sure you get your mental
Yeah.
health in check. And once you know you have a good mindset going on, you'll be in the right frame
Yeah.
set to go ahead and handle, money. So I agree. All
Yeah.
right. Now, before we move on from finances and into other areas that you've written about, what are some investment strategies that you can share with us?
Well, like I said, and in this particular topic, investment strategies, I'm learning them as I go along. And that's the thing about my book. Like I said, I had to tell somebody the other day, I'm grateful that I am actually living the things that I wrote in this book. And because I'm living these things, like I said, I'm learning some of them as I go along, financial literacy being one of them. But what I have done as far as investing, I've opened a Webull stock account. You know what I'm saying, to get some stocks. You know what I'm saying, buy some stocks, because like I said, if we buy stocks like for everyday uses, things that we use every day, or something like Gatorade. You drink Gatorade all the time, I think Pepsi would be a perfect company to invest in. Toilet paper. You know what I'm saying? Bounty, whoever, whatever the normal things that you normally use in everyday life, I would suggest that you put a few pennies or a few dollars into those products in the stock market, so that you can start your chance of doing generational wealth, and teaching the kids as you go along while you try to learn it. Because if you can teach the kids now about putting money into stocks, they'll absorb that like a sponge. And then as they continue to grow, then they'll be able to do it with ease, and maybe even be able to continue to teach it to those that come behind them, or teach it to the ones that are still here that don't have a real better understanding of it. So that's my take on creating that generational wealth, as well as investing into the stock market.
Okay, so how soon should people start looking into stocks? Like, what age do you suggest that should begin?
Let's see. I'll say, because my grandchildren, I have two 7-year-old granddaughters, and I believe that they are smart enough at this age to start putting them some pennies aside, or some quarters and dimes aside, because they have like an acorn account. You know what I'm saying? For kids, they have small, stock market things for kids that, if you get to start them early, what I'm saying, they could, pick up on it, and then they would probably be even anxious to do extra chores just so that they can make extra money to put into those stocks. Because if you give them ideas, and give them those types of things to look forward to, they'll pick those things up now, and then as they continue to grow, they'll continue to move forward with those types of situations.
Wow, that is very young, but it's also encouraging for people who are way older to be like, hey, if a kid can do this, maybe I
Yeah.
can too. So now let's talk about stocks.
Yeah.
Like, what are they actually?
Stocks or shares in a company. Shares being, you can have one or two shares in a company, and you will still be able to, and when that company decides to make decisions on whether or not to increase or pay the bosses more money, you will have a say so in what that company does and how that company moves in that company. Meaning, you have a share of monies invested in that company. So seeing that you have money invested in that company, those are what you call stocks. But they have different kinds of stocks. And like I said, I'm just into, they have stocks where you can do options, stock options, but I choose not to do options at this moment because I'm writing, and options or something that's a little bit more intense, and it's a little bit more risky, as opposed to just buying stocks and holding stocks and letting those stocks, gain money as they continue to grow, because they're gonna fall and rise, but eventually, the stock, as long as that stock stay in the green and it continues to rise, you'll still make money.
Oh, wow, that was so wonderfully explained. Okay, so you also write about how your family experienced family curses in your book, and you go on to say that personal growth leads to generational healing, and not only that, but also abundance and harmony. So, how did that work out?
Well, like I said, it's a personal journey, because it's been a personal journey for me. Like I said, to confront depression, to confront mental illness, knowing that it exists in my family, starting with my mother, my brothers, and on down the list. And then to know that if it starts that high, and then I'm somewhere down in the middle, that means that I have it as well on some level. But at the same time, it's my decision to either fall into the trap and just be stuck in that mental health division or mental state, you know what I'm saying? Or get out of it. And I chose to deal with it within myself. And then, my mother, she used to always tell me if I had a problem to talk to somebody, you know what I'm saying? Don't be afraid to ask questions. And that's how I deal with it. That was how I dealt with it. I was able to, you know, I did a lot of fighting because I didn't know how to deal with it. I did a lot of, communicating with other people, you know what I'm saying, that I trusted, you know what I'm saying? But to actually seek out a professional mental health person, I didn't. And I chose to talk to God throughout this whole journey. And me having a personal relationship with God helped me to be able to overcome those things within myself and not be afraid to confront the mental health issues, that I've dealt with, sexual abuse, you know what I'm saying? And to even have that conversation with the person that have had did, cause me that harm, and still be able to forgive them and move forward with my life and not be stuck.
Wow, that is such a powerful testimony. I'm so happy that you saw yourself coming through it and doing well. But that is such a hard topic to discuss, but it's something that's needed to be talked about because generational curses, they travel down the family line. And it's important, like you said, to locate and understand where your curses are in the family and what they're about and break them through prayer. Maybe do that alongside getting help, mental help, and all that, just as you described. Okay, so
Yeah.
you write that to care for our overall care, we should actually implement the use of herbs holistically. So, why is that?
Well, that I believe that because as a child growing up, I remember my grandmother having all of these mason jars in her kitchen on the shelf, and they had all these different little concoctions in them. And I recall she had this one that looked like it had some red onions and honey and some garlic and some lemons and stuff in it or whatever. And I thought that was some of the nastiest looking stuff in the world. But that was the same stuff that she would give us, when we had colds or things of that nature. And it was like, ugh, I want to take that. But after having a spoonful of something off of that shelf, whatever the problem was, it all went away. So I wanted to get back to the holistic aspect of things because Big Pharma just wants you to continue to take their pills and not heal anything, just stifle the problem. And I want to be able to heal the situation because, like I said, we just like with constant use of the holistic way of doing things, you have to give it time to get into the system and work the system and things of that nature so that you can, be healthy within yourself as opposed to taking pills that's going to cause you to have liver damage or, have some side effects that, is going to make the situation worse as opposed to making the situation better. So that's the reason why I believe that we should all go back to holistically using some stuff as opposed to all of these pills that they want to fill us up with.
I completely agree. I remember one time I tried, taking herbs and I had a bad cold and immediately the cold went away. And these are tried and true remedies that our grandparents used and
Exactly.
they were doing it right because this is God's natural medicine. And sometimes with pharmaceuticals, they come with a lot of symptoms and side effects, but when you're taking herbs that
Yes.
come from the earth naturally, what side effects are you going to have but healthy ones? So I get where you're coming from. Now, I read that you said to obtain a healthy mind, it actually comes in maintaining a healthy body. So, how do we obtain that healthy mind?
Well, for me, I like to believe that, the area around me has to be clean and tidy in order for me to be able to think clearly. If the room that I'm in or my apartment is all messy and the dish is not washed, the floor need to be swept and mopped and things and that stuff everywhere, I don't function well that way. So I believe that if you have, you take time to clean yourself and take time to put that energy into making sure that the area around you and things are nice and tidy, it'll give you a clear thought and clear pathway. So when you pray, meditate, or whatever it may be, you have a clear connection to God, and you can get those clear answers to whatever question it is that you have in doubt about in your body and in your mind, so that you can have a clear mind and body. That's what I believe.
Agreed. You got to declutter your mind. And a healthy mind, it also goes hand in hand with doing things that you've been putting off for a long time. Because once you do that, you have this sense of
Yeah.
relief and you have, more space to
Yes.
just be in a relaxed state of mind. So I get it. Okay.
Yes.
Now, I love that your book touches on so many different topics because throughout our discussion, we went from financial literacy to generational curses to now we're talking about taking herbs and taking care of your mind. And now I just want to ask, where can listeners find your book or reach out to you because it covers so much more than we've even discussed?
Well, you can find my book on Amazon. All you got to do is go on Amazon.com and put the title in, and the book should pop up. And you can get it in ebook, you can get it in hardcover, and you can get it in softcover. And you can find me also on Facebook under my name, Victoria A. Burns. Um, I'm not sure how long I'm gonna be on TikTok, but you can find me on TikTok with the same name as well, Victoria A. Burns.
Wonderful. Well, all those details are going to be right in the description. Thank you so much for your time, Victoria.
Thank you for allowing me to do this. I appreciate you so very kindly.
Thank you so much to you listeners for joining us today. Make sure to subscribe to the Mercy K YouTube channel for more.